going to start talking now. It's Kennedy here filling in for Will. This is the Will Cain Show, launching you into another phenomenal week, God willing. The news only gets weirder by the day, which is great for us, for those of us who analyze, cover, and make fun of the absurd nude cycle indeed. So if you are here for bodily fluids, you're in luck, because we're going to cover the Diddy trial and all of the revelations. We'll try and keep it as family-friendly as possible, as well as the President of the United States, who is no longer president. He is now the prostate of the United States, because everyone is talking about Joe Biden's prostate cancer, which it sounds like it is not a terribly sunny diagnosis. So we'll get into some of the media reaction on that. And a little later in the show, I made a trip to Pacific Palisades, California last week. As you may or may not know, I have a home there. And in my neighborhood, a little over 50% of the homes burned down. It's a pretty small section of the Palisades that saw some big losses, not as much as the Alphabet Streets, which lost 93% of the homes there. Same with the Marquez Knolls. It's a very, very bleak situation. I've been going there about once a month to check in on my home, and I will give you a full update on what is happening with the bureaucracy, both inside the government and inside the insurance companies, and what frustrated neighbors are saying about their losses and their worries as time rolls on. But first, let's get to that walnut situated in former President Joe Biden's taint, which has apparently been terribly problematic. And not only because he has been diagnosed with what appears to be metastatic prostate cancer, a horrible diagnosis for any man or anyone who identifies as a prostate holder. But the media reaction has not been terribly favorable to poor Joe Biden. In fact, what was once very friendly territory for him on Morning Joe took quite a turn into the darker nether regions of medicine when Joe and Mika tapped a brilliant urological mind to doctor his way into Joe Biden's prostate. Listen to this.
You believe it is likely, if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone, that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you are saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
Morning Joe has apparently come to Jesus. And now, just in the nick of time, he's offering a little skepticism on the Biden administration, whereas before he was Joe Biden's greatest cheerleader. He was saying that it was the fittest, healthiest, sharpest Joe Biden that he had ever seen. But apparently the former president was harboring a very scary secret. Joining me now is Bridget Phetasy. She is one of my very favorites. You know her as the host of Walk-Ins Welcome, Dumpster Fire, Real America with Bridget Phetasy, not that phony baloney America we all try and get away from. Bridget, welcome to the Will Cain Show.
Thank you for having me.
So what did you first think when you heard of the unfortunate diagnosis? And I will say that all of us here at Fox extend our condolences to the Biden family and for what they're going through. And, of course, anyone who is diagnosed with a terrifying cancer issue like that, we extend condolences, prayers, and hope that he survives this and lives comfortably as long as possible. And your thoughts when you first saw this turn in the news, where oddly enough, Joe Biden has been popping up for the last month or so because of so many books that are being written negatively about his cognitive decline at the end of his presidency.
Yeah, my first thought obviously was just, oh, this is tragic, and I wish him and his family well. And then directly after that thought is, how long has this been going on? Because I've had a lot of people in my life who have had prostate cancer. It was diagnosed quite early. And from what little I know about it, I'm not a doctor, obviously, they get these tests routinely so that they can catch this stuff early. And I would hope that the president of the United States has access to the best screenings in the entire world. So that it automatically feels like it makes me very cynical. Immediately I just get I don't know how you've been doing this for as long as you've been doing it. I'm just deeply cynical about all of our politicians and the media.
Well, at some point, I think that's where you have to start with all of them, and how you cover politics in general is you have to see the entire thing as an absurd circus. And you have to see, people who are career politicians, they are just trying to amass power. So when they're out of office, they can try and cash out and make as much money as possible in post-presidency. Joe Biden has quite a headwind, because if he's hiding prostate cancer from the country, and, I don't think it would have altered the outcome of the election if he had said 2 years ago that he was dealing with prostate cancer. Maybe after the 2022 midterms, where Democrats felt like they had some significant victories, he could have stepped aside and said, you know what, I got to take care of my health. I was hoping that we could treat this. It's not possible with the rigors of the job. Therefore, Vice President Harris is now going to be President Harris, and that would have put her at an advantage running as an incumbent. But he didn't do that. But if you've got a doctor going on MSNBC, Biden-friendly territory, saying, this guy has known about this for years, doesn't it feel like if that's the case, then they must have been committing some sort of fraud or medical malpractice? Because do the American people deserve to know every health aspect of their president?
I think we do. I think absolutely we do. If you're just a private citizen, no. But why? This is somebody who's making decisions on behalf of all of us, and allegedly should be in their right mind, which is the cover up that I feel like we're now trying to cover up with another cover up. It feels actually insane. I know this book is coming out in a couple of days about
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
The
yes.
Jake Tapper book, Original Sin, that he wrote with Axios' Alex Thompson, comes out tomorrow. So I Bridget, I'm really glad you brought that up. What was your next thought after seeing the timing of this announcement with that book release?
It just feels like an attempt to garner sympathy, which I deeply resent. It made me mad. It's like, oh, so you're going to try and garner all this sympathy from people. And now I think David Axelrod came out and said, oh, we need to not be talking about his mental acuity or how his mental fitness while he was president. And we should just let him focus on his cancer diagnosis, which to me, that is disgusting and despicable.
Well, I think that he probably feels guilty because he has been one of the people saying that there's something wrong here. Democrats need a solution. And the party didn't listen to him. He's like James Carville. Like he's one of those old school naysayers who, doesn't want to just be carrying water for Democrats because it's more of a colander than a bucket right now. It's a very, very leaky vessel. But I disagree with that. I think that I think human beings are capable of emotional multitasking. I think you can both have sympathy for someone, but also look back skeptically, because if there was cover up, as these 3 books, 2 of them have already come out. The big one comes out tomorrow. and they're alleging, pretty widespread cover-up from the media to Biden insiders. That was just one thing they were covering up. I think, the timing of this, the seriousness of this just goes to show that what else were they covering up?
Right.
That has to occur to you when you're looking at this.
Well, it's strange, too, because you'll see people online saying things like, oh, why would he cover this up? Maybe he just found out, and I've had people who have found out, and now it's metastasized into his bones, and maybe this isn't some conspiracy. Why would you think that? It's like, we have 3 books that are coming out talking about how they've covered up stuff that we could actually see with our own eyes. We could see that this man was not necessarily all there all the time. Why would I assume that they weren't hiding other things that we can't see? It's insulting to people to say, why would you think they were covering this up? Well, because they've covered up things that we all saw with our own eyes and told us that we weren't seeing.
Yes, and Jake Tapper was one of those people when anyone would go on CNN and say, I think there's something wrong with Joe Biden. I don't know if he's got dementia, but, he's definitely a few sandwiches short of a picnic. And he would say, oh, are you a doctor? And then blame it on his stutter. And I don't think it's the stutter. I really don't. And I agree. President Trump said something a couple weeks ago. He said that Joe Biden has been the worst thing for old people because it's really easy to demonize someone for their age. And then, Trump followed it up with, I know people older than Joe Biden who have much greater cognitive capacity than he does. And I tend to agree with that. Like, I think there are people who have an incredible amount of concentrated wisdom in their 80s and 90s who could run circles around Joe Biden. I still think, yes, he was a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Now you know what Robert Hur was talking about when you listen to some of the leaked audio of that conversation that when they were interrogating the president. But also, he's a narcissist. He's a narcissistic person who wanted to stay in power, for the trappings, for the power itself. And I really think that was Joe Biden pushing him into it.
And you mentioned the leak of the Hur interview, which just happened on Friday as well. So the timing of this it makes you so cynical. It's hard not to say, why would this have been released, on Sunday?
Yeah, if you look at last week, he was on The View and did horribly. He couldn't answer questions. Jill had to interject and answer for him. That's number one. Number two, the most damning part of the Hur audio leaks, and you're like, wow, this is way worse than we thought. They knew how bad this was. This wasn't just, 90 minutes in his life, a bad debate performance because he was on cold medicine because he had a virus from traveling. So you've got that on Friday. And then the cancer announcement is sandwiched perfectly in between the Hur audio and the Jake Tapper book. It's pretty gross.
And people are rightfully suspicious, but then now they're getting bombarded with people saying, oh, don't make this political. This is tragic. But you have people like Axelrod coming out and saying, hey, you shouldn't, we should just let them focus on this, but they're making it political.
Yes.
That's not fair. I think there should absolutely be a reckoning. It truly is a scandal that this man's mental fitness and now physical fitness as well have just been covered up and lied about. And the guy pardoned almost everyone in his whole family except for the doctor, the doctor in the family. Maybe he thought she was a real doctor and then found out that she wasn't and got mad and decided not to pardon her.
Yeah, and she maybe there was some finger pegging and she was like, Joe, you're fine. I'm a doctor. You can trust me. And she's sipping a Dr. Pepper. See, this is what all doctors drink. So just looking at this, the sins of omission were political. Like him not disclosing why a dementia/Alzheimer's specialist repeatedly visited the White House, and they tried to say, like, oh no, sometimes we just have these fun clinics. And then we have specialists come by, and then, it's like some of the neighborhood school kids, they just come through the White House. And, because what fifth grader doesn't love talking about dementia? Like, this is great. It's a public service. And it's like, we see right through you. And they didn't care if they were seen through, just if they could hold on to power just long enough to get all this stuff, because they really they think they're the Obamas. They thought they were going to leave the White House and be like, where's my $100 million Netflix deal? All right. Yeah. Where's my 60 mil for the his and hers memoirs? Oh, only 30? That doesn't even pay Hunter's legal bills. Gross. I'm speaking. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Paintings got burned in the fire.
That is such hot malarkey. Okay.
I know.
So and by the way, if I'm not mistaken, Hunter's in the same position I'm in California, which I'm going to get into in a little bit, but my house is uninhabitable because of the lead and asbestos that's inside. Because with 100-mile-an-hour winds, we had a door blow open and everything that was burning all around us. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But Hunter, the same thing happened. If I'm not mistaken, his house didn't burn down. So it's like a lot of that stuff is there and can probably go through a very thorough remediation process. But there are so many lies. But then, I look at all of this and I look at these once cultural titans like Diddy and hearing the just horrific, depraved stories from male prostitutes and Cassie last week. That was really rough. And I thought about being 8 months pregnant and having to go through that and having to relive that and having the jury see videos that were taken of you having sex with male prostitutes used as emotional blackmail, and then having to talk about a man whore taking a tinkle on you while your boyfriend, as you complained, then joined in with his own whiz. That was, I don't know if I'm going to get that picture out of my head anytime soon, let alone the smell.
It's so, it is so dark. That's what I mean. The news, even these two stories that we're covering, there's something so dark about all of it. It's hard to, I want to stay light and positive. And I mean, you're my Gen X queen. We came of age around the Diddy times when he was like the hugest star in the world at one point. And now you find out all of this stuff has been going on. People are running to, other countries to try and flee any association with him after bragging about being at all of his parties.
And all the pictures and all the baby oil and all the iPads full of videos that the FBI and I don't know who, I can't remember who raided his house. It was more than FBI. It was like ATF or DEA. It was other law enforcement organizations. And they were just like,
and when you heard about the raid, you're like, wow, that's a lot of baby oil. But now you're hearing all this testimony. You're like, oh, he really did baby oil.
Yeah, no, that. And then his lawyer tried to say, he bought it from Costco. That he just bought in bulk. He just, what can we say? Sean loves a bargain. And then you hear Cassie going, no, we were at the Montage and he made me get an inflatable kiddie pool. And then I had to fill it with 10 regular sized bottles of baby oil and roll around in my clothes. Because it's like, I don't know, for a lot of people who might not wear Hermes, very difficult to get baby oil out of silk.
Who amongst us does not buy baby oil in bulk? I don't know how she does that. I truly don't know how she's testifying.
He made her clean everything up. And she's like, wait, I'm a star too. Like, no. Yeah, I'm covered in tinkle, and I would glow like a fluorescent Christmas tree under black light if someone, God forbid, came in here with all the fluids, and I have to clean this up. It's that was the bridge too far for me.
The bridge too far for me is that his children are witnessing all of this.
Thank you!
In the courthouse.
I wrote about that last week for Daily Mail because I was so grossed out. He's got twin 17-year-old daughters and an 18-year-old daughter, and they're sitting there like, our dad's amazing. And then they're watching this abuse and hearing tales from these male prostitutes. And then you hear, remember the guy who shot up Doral? I know I'm saying it wrong. Is it Doral? I don't know. I can never remember, and I want to correct myself, but I've said it both ways so many times. So the country club outside of Fort Lauderdale, Doral, thank you. Jonathan Odie went and shot the place up, and then he was like, I've lost my mind because I'm Diddy's baby oil covered sex slave. And everyone's like, okay, that guy's insane. Like, clearly that man is having delusions. Then it's like, no, he might have been on Cowboys for Angels, which is where Cassie went and got the gigolos. And it's like, oh, there's Jonathan, loves lifting weights, maxing his bench, and peeing on people. We'll hire him. He sounds great.
But doesn't it all feel part of more of just his degradation of women, having his kids there to witness this?
Yes.
It feels just like this is normal. He's just acting like, oh, this is just, hey, kids, tune in to how I beat this woman allegedly. And
I think we can take the allegedly out of it because he released a video. He was like, yeah, that was me. It was just a really bad day. Like I was hungover and hangry, and it happens. Am I right? No. And everyone's like, no, it doesn't happen. You know there are security cameras everywhere, and that's what you're doing in front of security cameras. What on earth are you doing behind closed doors? And the other big revelation. Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering how he was mad that he's trying to say it's not trafficking. He's like, yeah, maybe it's domestic abuse. The lawyers are trying to say this, but we didn't traffic anyone.
Yeah, his lawyer's like, yeah, he's kinky. Like he likes baby oil. Like big deal. And then you hear about everything else, and you're like, whoa, whoa. So I don't know if they will find him guilty. I think they will find him disgusting. And that will be enough to really stunt anything left of his career, But at one point, he was worth $1 billion on paper. So hopefully he has a nice Sapphira for all the kids.
Can you imagine, though, that's the defense? They're like, just don't kink shame Diddy. You guys are kink shaming him.
Yeah, because that's the defense for everything. You have Tim Walz like, there are nice people in this country and they don't even get to say goodbye to their loved ones. Like, who are their loved ones? The kids they're diddling because they're child molesters? Like, that's who you're defending? And yes, I wouldn't be surprised if Lena Dunham came out and was like, just stop. Like, I was shamed because I'm corpulent and disgusting and oddly proportioned and really shouldn't be seen in public without my clothes on. And you're doing the same thing to Diddy, and we've both been aggrieved. Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, it may be bad, but you are fantastic, wonderful, walk-ins welcome, dumpster fire, Real America with Bridget Phetasy. I want everyone to tune into every platform that you own, and so you can continue to be an absolute legend.
Thank you so much for having me, Kennedy.
It's wonderful having you on the Will Cain Show. Thank you, Bridget Phetasy.
Thank you.
With the PH. That's right. We're going to be back talking about the Southern California wildfires and how the state has managed to screw that pooch even further. Kennedy in on the Will Cain Show. Welcome back to the Will Cain Show. It's Kennedy in for Will Cain on a manic Monday because, again, nothing in the news cycle can be normal. We have been dealing with the fallout from the New Jersey transit strike in the tri-state area. Here, I live in New York City, and that has meant increased traffic, difficulty getting around because people who normally commute on the rails from New Jersey into the city, they're having to find alternate ways to get there. That means a lot more cars on the road, and it's been a real hassle. So a lot of people didn't have a Mexican Navy ship hitting the Brooklyn Bridge this weekend. Dan, did you see that?
I did. We're watching it right now, as you can see.
There's people up there.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and they're holding on for dear life. Unfortunately, 2 of the sailors perished. Oh my God, they're just dangling.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
They're tied to the mast.
Okay, but my legal domestic partner is an engineer. There has to be an engineer in the Mexican Navy. There has to be.
It's pretty crazy. It was like a I think they ran out of like the electricity on the boat or something like that, so the motor wasn't working, something like that.
Okay, so maybe they couldn't reverse because there are no brakes on a boat.
Because you could see a bridge pretty clear.
Yes,
coming
and
up
you
at
can also like you can eyeball it.
Yeah.
And go, I'm not going to.
That's about 100 meters, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So what are they doing dangling up there in the first place? Is it like ice capades? Like da 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 da. We're the Mexican Navy boys.
I don't mean to
girls.
laugh, but yes.
No.
It seemed like they were doing.
We lost some good people out there.
It seemed like they were doing like a Broadway show on a boat on the Mass.
Which is fine when the ship isn't moving.
Yes.
But when it's moving and it's like, hey, SOS.
Like, what if you're one of those?
SAOSA.
Oh my God. What if you're one of those guys up there? You're like, hey, guys down there, you know we're about to hit a bridge, right?
Yeah.
I might hit it myself.
Like,
so maybe stop.
I'm going to be the dangler, and I don't want to dangle. I mean, that was awful.
Awful.
And then Eric Adams tweets out, hey, you guys, it's okay. The bridge is okay, everyone.
Thanks.
And I understand, like, you don't always get we hope everyone's okay.
Yes.
The Coast Guard is on it. We've got NYPD vessels. They are racing to the scene. We are going to make sure we stem the tide and save lives because that is most important. He's like, the bridge is good, you guys.
Yeah. Matt, what would you do if you were one of those drivers on the bridge? Do you see it coming? Do you stop or do you just try to go?
I would pretend to be asleep. Then I would plead narcolepsy.
Yeah. Just sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that would that's one of those moments where you're like, please don't be real. Please.
Yeah, it's like one of those optical illusions. You would think, like, no, that's going to go under the bridge.
It's got to.
And it has to.
Yeah.
You see it coming?
Because then in your brain you go, this happens every day.
Exactly. How would that not?
Yeah. And it's like if you've ever been in a plane and then you see a plane flying underneath you, and it's probably like 2,000 feet below you, but it seems like it's 4 inches.
Exactly.
And then you're like, well, they have to do that every day.
Or landing, you feel like you're going to hit all the buildings that you're coming down, especially in New York City. It's
yeah,
like, I'm
LaGuardia
pretty
has
sure
a
we're going
short
to die.
runway.
Exactly.
Like
I just
they
did it the
gotta
other
throw
day.
the brakes on. My head almost hit the seat in front of me the other day.
I did it last week. It was crazy.
I've been flying out of Newark too.
That's brutal.
That's a poop show.
Yeah, what is happening there?
I was supposed to fly back from Los Angeles on Thursday, and we were supposed to leave at 4:30 p.m. Didn't leave till 7 at night because they make an announcement. Yeah, the pilot's not going to be here for a couple hours. It's like, oh, really? Like, no one let him know? Like, this it's a great day to fly on time, sir.
There was one air traffic controller for an entire hour at Newark Airport working. That was it. Just one.
Yeah, because they're all on like disability leave because they had a tough day. It's like, what do you think cops and firefighters and ambulance drivers experience in the city every day? Yeah, well, just I couldn't bear it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make a problem much, much worse by taking a powder for 45 days. Like, just quit. Like, do what Reagan did: fire everyone who took the leave and bring in all new people.
Yep,
there
that's
are
right.
plenty of smart and wonderful would-be air traffic controllers who would do a great job navigating planes and even piloting Mexican naval ships. Well, I have been trying to pilot the disaster of the Southern California wildfires that hit on January 7th. And as the whole thing was unfolding, it was one of those moments where it was like, wow, that looks incredibly close. Can that be real? I was in Los Angeles at the time, and my good friend who rents out a room in my house in the Palisades was taking pictures of various viewpoints as the fire was raging. And, I was getting texts on my phone like, evacuate now. This is go time because they have in Southern California, ready, set, go. That's the protocol for escaping peril. So ready is you have your go box ready by the door. You got your stuff ready to go because something bad could happen. Set is you got it in the car. So your stuff is ready to go. Go is like, get the hell out of there. So they were like past go. And then I was getting texts all night just trying in whatever way I could to survey what was happening. The high school, we live about a block and a half from the high school, that caught on fire. And once that caught on fire, I just assumed that our house would be consumed. My neighbor, Lindy, did Reiki on our block and somehow saved it. Also, we had an Australian bush firefighter who defied the evacuation order, took his hoses that he brought from Australia, stayed up all night, and was able to hose off not his house, but a big wooden house on the corner that if that corner house had burned, all of our houses would have burned. And it was a very selfless act. And he and another neighbor stayed up all night hosing that down. And you saw so much good, so many neighbors checking in with each other. So many friends that I had that weren't directly affected, they immediately went to volunteer stations to help sort out food and shelter for people who were displaced. Thousands of people between the Pacific Palisades and Altadena, which were burning simultaneously. They are without homes, without schools. A lot of the schools in Pacific Palisades burned to the ground, including my daughter's elementary school and preschool, which was really tragic for the community. So you would think the mayor, Karen Bass, and the governor, Gavin Newsom, would step up and help out and honor some of their promises to make the permitting process easier. Well, guess what? That hasn't happened. Gavin Newsom has been busy doing his scintillating podcast. Karen Bass is running around looking for someone to blame who told her to go to Africa during a once-in-a-century windstorm. I have lived in Southern California for a long, long time and have never seen anything like what I saw with the winds. And all it took was a spark and the entire place burned to the ground because they weren't ready. There was no water. Guy Benson made a great point last week. The liberals in California tell you they need all your tax money for services to serve you. And then when it's time for those services, there's no water in the reservoir. That meant there was no water in the hydrants. And you had firefighters in tears because they were trying to battle these blazes with fire hydrants that had gone completely dry. And they had to abandon entire neighborhoods because they had no way of fighting them. And then Karen Bass lied and said that there were water trucks there. I call BS. I can't believe the two of them have not resigned in disgrace. And since then, it is Russian roulette with the insurance companies, because depending on the insurance that you have, I will tell you, like people who had State Farm, because of the insurance commission, they basically abandoned the state. And they told the insurance commission, because of your bureaucracy, we can no longer insure people. So they gave one of my neighbors until March 31st of this year for coverage. The fire was in January, so they're on the hook for that. They lost their home. And they did everything that the liberals tell you to do. They planted succulents and they had koi ponds. It didn't matter. The blaze came in two directions and devoured their home and every home around them. They're about 2 blocks from us. And I've got other friends whose homes were destroyed and burned to the ground, and they have no recourse because these insurance companies, for a lot of people, in my case, they've just stopped responding. They're looking for ways to deny claims, even though clearly everything burned to the ground. And if it didn't burn to the ground, it is so damaged that these homes are unlivable and they are unsafe. And insurance companies don't want to do their basic duty to respond to people the way they promise that they're going to do with these crocodile tears. We are here for you. They are there for themselves. And it is leading to a type of frustration that California voters who have been tried and pushed to the limit in every imaginable way because of big government. But somehow you look at this and you have to realize that the insurance companies and the politicians are in bed together and they're just protecting each other and they're completely screwing the people that they claim they want to help. They are not. The situation is supremely unhelpful, and it's only getting worse by the day because now a lot of insurance companies, if you lost your home, they're like, tough Tetons, we're no longer paying for you, even though in your policy it says they have to pay for a place for you to live. They're like, nope, we're not going to do that anymore. Sorry. You still have to pay your mortgage, though, and your property taxes. So people are very much on the hook for that. Banks are trying to sort of sheepishly change the subject so they don't have to offer people a grace period where they can pause their mortgage payments until they figure out what they're going to do with their worthless property. So the whole thing makes you look at the Golden State and wonder if it can ever come back from this level of tarnish. One person who has been so good about not only feeding our souls, but also keeping an eye, a skeptical eye, which is so incredibly necessary in every political realm, on the incompetent bureaucrats and politicians who are running California into the ground. But at least on his watch, you can do it with a smile on your face and a full belly. Calico Fish House is his latest establishment in Huntington Beach, California. Chef Andrew Gruel is here. Welcome to the Will Cain Show, Chef.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
So I know that you were feeding a lot of the first responders after the wildfire. Tell me about some of your experiences.
Yeah, well, originally it started by just offering up our restaurant and our parking lot to people who were fleeing LA, and they could stay here, and then we would give them meals and ultimately try and give them an opportunity or a space to figure out what their next move is as they were figuring out what's going on. We knew there really wasn't going to be much direction coming down from the city, and that turned into this massive project where we had probably at the end of the day, after about a month, we distributed about $500,000 worth of products, food, money directly. We were working with the firefighters, but we were also working with a lot of the nonprofit and religious rescue organizations, specifically the Dream Center. But the coolest thing about it was actually the amount of people that stepped up to help. We talk about the government and how ultimately, especially for many of us who are kind of small, limited government people, that in times of emergencies, that's the time that the government should step up and really utilize their power in order to help the people. Well, they were nowhere to be found. All of the people came together and are still doing that in order to help those who actually need the immediate assistance. So at one point, we had like 300 volunteers that had taken over our entire parking lot. We had probably 10 or 15 pickup trucks, public utility trucks that were loading up products that was being sent in. The products were being sent in from all over the country. 7, 8 Amazon trucks at a time, unloading, breaking down boxes, and bringing it up to all the different fire lines directly to the firefighters, but also to the relief centers. So, you know, on the one hand, it's really sad and disappointing that the one time that we actually do need the government, they're not there. But on the other hand, it's a testament to the goodwill of the people who can step up and fulfill that role and in a completely bipartisan manner. This was in January, right? We were still kind of heated politically. We're in Orange County, which is considered the more conservative area of California. We had people coming down from LA to actually help us who had lost a lot of their stuff in Los Angeles, whether it was directly or indirectly. And I remember at one point watching people like fully trumped up in the MAGA gear with people who were wearing, you know, Harris gear, high-fiving, throwing boxes on the back of a truck to go back up to LA. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but that's really the truth. And that's what happened. So that's kind of how we stepped up. But it wasn't us specifically. It was everybody. It was hundreds and hundreds of people.
And you're absolutely right. There was something that was so shocking. And it's the kind of thing that shocks you out of your own politics, out of your own tribe for a second when you see that level of suffering. And it's, you know, I think about my immediate neighbors who lost their homes, and they all come from very different backgrounds and very different stories. You know, I have a good friend who inherited his house from his mom, and he had sold the house before the fire, and the buyer was able to back out. His home survived. Another friend of mine inherited his house from his grandmother. And, you know, these are not wealthy people. That's a pretty common story. And, you know, they left. They moved to the Pacific Northwest and to be with one of their adult children, because it's just, it's so frustrating. Things are happening. I know we all want relief quickly, but the fact that the process has come to a grinding halt for so many people because of the insurance bureaucracy it's really unconscionable. And you look at the goodness that individuals are able to express, especially when they come together. And that's one of the reasons I love California, is because, my neighbors, we really truly love each other and look out for each other. And there's so many people there. And maybe it's because we feel like we have been abandoned by the government because we are alone. Therefore, you have to create communities of people. And that's not something that outsiders normally associate with California. You associate that with the Midwest and the South. But, there are really tight-knit communities. And, talking to friends of mine who didn't live in the Palisades or Brentwood or Pasadena that were hightailing it to go help in any way they could. And I think of my friend who was volunteering at one of the stations for first responders, and she asked a station chief, like, it's just you and me. What happened? And he choked up and said, "There's no water. I've never seen anything like it. In my 30 years on the job, never seen anything like it." And it's things like that, the unsupported heroes that require so much accountability from these careerist politicians that are only out for their own needs and political gain.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the politicians, when we look at this from the perspective of kind of government and then the individual, I think that it really underscores the fact that a lot of the politicians, a lot of these people in city government and obviously state government, and I see it now, I'm on city council suddenly, and I understand a little bit.
Is Tito Ortiz still in Huntington Beach politics?
No, he left. So he was on city council for about 1 or 2 months, and then it was like too much. I know he had issues they were harassing his family. He ended up moving out of Huntington Beach.
Oh.
That was probably 3 or 4 years ago. So yeah, so I'm in a position where a guy that got punched in the face for a living only made it for a short period of time. So I'll keep you updated in a couple more weeks. No, but what I think it is that a lot of people get into these roles and it's just so much fluff, right? It's just kind of the glad handing and we'll get to that. And it kind of runs through this long, kind of amalgamation of bureaucracy. But then when an actual crisis hits, when the rubber hits the road, who's ready to react and who's ready to deploy and execute? And that's where the government, not only were they at a standstill, most of the officials calling the shots were not even in the country. You talked about the insurance element leading into this. It wasn't just Karen Bass being in Africa, but also when the insurance companies were kind of having that grand meeting here in California, if you recall, the insurance commissioner was given a keynote speech in Bermuda. He couldn't even show up at the Capitol for the conversation about, hey guys, how are we going to get the money to the people who need it? So there's a certain apathetic approach to this, was just like, yeah, we'll deal with it next year. And that next year approach has been going on now for decades, 15 years in California, where it's been this Democratic supermajority. We spend the most money in taxes of any state in the country, and yet we actually have the worst services. So I think that's the takeaway from this.
Yeah, and then Karen Bass fires the LAFD chief. Oh. And, it's like, because she dared speak the truth. And, she was one who said, I was worried because we don't have enough trucks in service. We don't have enough personnel. We didn't have enough stuff mobilized. And that's what a mayor does. And, also her deputy, Karen Bass's deputy mayor, who was under home arrest, because he was, accused of some sort of bomb threat at City Hall. And it's like, those are the unhinged, narcissistic politicians that Californians are dealing with. Do you think there is going to be a reset? I mean, I've been hoping for it. I first moved to Southern California in 1990. And I remember looking at politics back then, and I was a Republican then. I'm a limited government, small L libertarian, unaffiliated voter now. And I feel like every election cycle, I'm like, this is it. This is when, people have lost patience, and this is when they're going to make a big change. But was the fire that thing?
Yes and no, right? I don't think the fire is going to be the specific catalyst that leads towards change in California. However, I do think that it's certainly moving the ship in a little bit of a different direction, because not only did the fire wake people up, but now the reaction to the fire and the fact that absolutely nothing has been done is a testament to how the government's ineptitude runs our lives day in and day out. I call it like an ineptocracy, if you will.
Yes.
So I think that people are, we look at it on a hyper local level. You look at Los Angeles specifically, which is obviously has a massive land area and voting base. And I think that a lot of Los Angeles is still just so overwhelmed with how poorly the city's been run. But a lot of people are thinking, well, what's really going to change, because the bureaucracy is so deep here in Los Angeles. So they're looking at like little wins. So when the politicians kind of throw out these platitudes and these marketing campaigns of, here's how we fixed A, B, and C, and don't worry, we're doing this, and they put the billboards up. Sometimes, unfortunately, that works, but I think it works because people want it to work, not because they deeply know that it's going to work. They know that the problem is so bad, they're hoping for a crumb of success. I think outside of Los Angeles, where you've got areas in which you can see some quicker changes with the governorship and some of the local races, local city council races, we are going to see a major change. So with Steve Hilton running, he's bringing up really pragmatic issues that the citizens can think about. Now, whether that ends up with a whole new kind of governorship here in California, I don't know, but I think the issues now are being talked about. So it might be a marathon and not a sprint in regards to change. But like I said, really back to the point about knowing that we had these issues and that the money wasn't there and the water wasn't there. One of the things that hasn't been covered, which I recall seeing, and then I saw it again the other day because I was kind of looking up some history of this fire and what changes have been made, was that 2 days before the fires, there was a huge budget meeting in Los Angeles with all of the fire representatives saying, we need money. We don't have the ability to fight fires. People are going to lose their lives. It was really
and by the way, at that point, they had already started issuing warnings. So they knew the wind event was there, that it was happening, and it was unlike anything. Because, like, we get Santa Anas every year. Yeah. And it's like the winds blow through and everyone walks outside and goes, oh, this is earthquake weather. Whenever there are Santa Anas, there's something about Santa Anas that really scramble people's brains. But they're like, oh, it's earthquake. We better hide the raccoon. But they knew it was coming. They had issued the warnings. They were all meeting. They were begging. They were lying. The politicians were lying about everything. The postmortem is not kind. So the only thing we can do is take care of our families and fuel our bodies. We're going to take a quick break. But, Chef, when we come back, we have to talk about protein, because protein is being demonized, but it can't be all that bad. Chef Andrew Gruel, he will make you bigger, stronger, faster, at least fuller in moments here on The Will Cain Show. Welcome back to The Will Cain Show. Kennedy in for Will Cain. And by the way, if you would like to hear more of me, you morsel, it's Kennedy Saves the World. That's my 5-day-a-week podcast. You can find it at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, FoxNewsPodcasts.com, and I hope you do. Chef Andrew Gruel, he is on the peeper buttons here with me on the Will Cain Show. So, Chef, protein. It's all I read about in my feed, and my algorithm is, hey, ladies in your 50s, you need more protein than ever because you're losing muscle mass and you're going to die. Unless you can carry 200% of your body weight around the gym in a farmer's carry for a minute and a half, you're probably going to expire next week. And then, an article comes out last week that all of a sudden protein is racist. I don't know what to do, Chef. I don't want to be a racist protein eater. I'm torn.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, though, is that protein's been in the headlines now for years as we've been focusing more on our health. I think COVID actually was a predicate that allowed people to start thinking about getting healthier. And since it's in the headlines, now they need to apply the racism card to it, right? So I think it went protein, then something new to apply this to, because there's only one formula that many people use in order to make you feel guilty about yourself. and to build themselves up. And now protein happens to be the target, but protein is great. We need to eat a lot more of it. As for, benching double your body weight, I'm still trying to get there myself. But I got 4 kids, so I'm on my feet all the time. And everybody says to me, how are you so skinny? And it's not because I don't eat enough protein. It's because I'm constantly moving and should probably be lifting more. But seafood is the protein people aren't talking about. So
I love
hear
seafood.
you me on that one.
Yes.
Eat more seafood.
Having grown up in the Pacific Northwest, where we had fresh salmon and we would shuck our own oysters and we would go digging for clams. And I spent so much of my childhood casting a line in order to just trying to beat my brothers, getting the biggest salmon of the day, hopefully something that was almost too big for me to hold. And my dad filleting it on the deck and dipping it in soy sauce was like one of the most pristine and wonderful memories from my childhood. And now I can't wait to go to Calico Fish House and have some of your incredible seafood.
We have a table ready for you. It's actually got your picture and your name on it. And we are fermenting seafood and have been for weeks in hopes that you show up. So we're ready.
Oh, I cannot wait. I mean, you're absolutely right. And, people think that you have to eat a tub of raw bison every day in order to meet your protein requirements. But what are some good seafood choices that, are not high in mercury and won't give you gout and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, I mean, look, salmon, any of the fishes that are high on omega-3 fatty acids. So I talk about U.S. trout. Trout is like, you never see it on menus, but trout's an unbelievable fish. Think of it as like a mild cousin of the salmon, and most of it is raised in the United States. Steelhead is another one. You probably had that in the Pacific Northwest. Black cod, California halibut, Alaskan halibut. The black cod, by the way, is from the West Coast. Also, wild Pacific albacore tuna. It's one of the most sustainable fish species in the world. It's caught off the Pacific Northwest, even up into Canada. And because it's a smaller albacore that reproduces quickly, which makes it inherently sustainable, it also doesn't have traceable levels of mercury because the mercury bioaccumulates over the years. So incredibly healthy fish. It's just not that kind of like sexy, big, red piece of tuna that we know and love.
We had last year, we went fishing in Maui and my sexy teenage boyfriend caught a couple of skipjacks.
Oh, skipjack. Yeah, that's another tuna. So a lot of these different species that we don't usually see, people think, I call it the holy trinity of seafood, salmon, shrimp, tuna, right? But eat kind of outside of that orthodox. Think about those underutilized fish, the skipjack, right? The trouts, even some of the bait fish, sardines, mackerel, herrings.
Pollock.
But you mentioned,
what about pollock?
Oh, pollock is great. Yeah, pollock is a wonderful fish. Wild Alaskan pollock. It's an incredibly sustainable
I got some of that
fish.
in the freezer.
There you go. Haddock, hake, hoki, Acadian redfish. There is a bounty of seafood out there. You just got to dig a little bit below the surface. But oysters, also eat more oysters.
I love oysters so much. I have oysters like once or twice a week.
I tell people oysters are vegan, right? Because if you think about it, they have no brain, they have no vertebrae. They're filter feeders, which means
they don't have eyeballs.
No eyeballs. They have no emotions. They've never watched The Notebook. These things, and they clean the environment because they're filter feeders. So you can put oysters in like a dirty estuary, and if you put enough oysters in there, the water will be crystal clear to look like the Bahamas. And I exaggerate a little bit, and then they say, "Oh, well, I don't want that in my meat." The beauty of oysters is that it goes in the shell, right? So the shell.
Don't eat the shell. That's where the problem comes up.
Don't eat the shell. Don't eat the shell. Grind the shell up, and then you use it as fertilizer. You see, it's the most sustainable food item in the world.
I love oysters. I'm so glad you said that because oysters get demonized. People are scared of them. They're lovely, succulent, and amazing, much like Calico Fish House. Chef Andrew Gruel, thank you for taking the time here on The Will Cain Show.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor. Look forward to seeing you soon.
I can't wait. Next time I'm back on the West Coast, Best Coast, I'm going to stop by after I revisit the tragedy that is the Pacific Palisades. I cannot wait for that to regenerate. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than I had originally imagined, but I believe in the power of people to rebuild their homes and their communities despite the government. It will happen and goodness will prevail. Thank you, Chef. This has been The Will Cain Show. Thank you so much for taking part. You can always see Will at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Fox News channel. And again, check out my podcast, Kennedy Saves the World, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Fox News, podcast.com. This is Kennedy for Will Cain, signing off.